Alright, welcome back for step 3, writing an argument to support a diagnosis. This will be the most crucial part of the lesson, as it will tell me just how much you've understood about the lesson and how much you've understood about your condition. Remember, it doesn't matter how smart you are if you can't prove it to me with your writing, because that's what I do the most reading about. So in this case, we need to write an argument about why Lisa does or does not have the condition that you and your partner have investigated. So you and your group, again remember the group is the class in this case. You're not actually in a group, the class will decide the diagnosis together at the end of the lesson. Are going to present a diagnosis for Lisa. Each of you is going to be responsible for explaining why Lisa does or does not have one of the 4 conditions. Those are diabetes, asthma, pancreas injury, and anemia. First, you have to explain how a healthy body functions, and they want you to do this so you can practice interpreting information from the model. Because if you look at the model and you say, I know that's correct, I know why, then we understand that you know what the model should be doing. And when you understand what it should be doing, you can tell what it should not be doing if it's functioning incorrectly, which is followed in the second part. Then you're going to write an argument in which you explain what happens in the body of someone who has the condition investigated. So in other words, you're going to write about what you see that's different in the investigation that you made for your condition instead of a healthy body. And then you're going to say whether or not it supports the fact that Elisa does or does not have that condition. So I'll go ahead and give you an example of each. My example is going to be very simple and very short. You should be writing quite a bit more than I do. For the first part, in explaining a healthy body, Elisa feels tired because she has a condition that affects whether the right molecules are getting to her cells. Remember, this is the smallest part of our bodies, and it helps us function on the whole. If her body were functioning correctly, this is what would happen with oxygen. Well, the easiest thing to do is to look at the sim, and then see where the oxygen goes to find out. Remember, you can do that by scrolling to the top, clicking these 3 little bars, and then clicking here on the simulation, and following an oxygen molecule in the simulation. If you're having trouble doing that, ask your partner or raise your hand and have me show you how to do it so that way you know what you're looking for, as it will help you with the rest of this argument as well. So in the case of oxygen, you'll write down what it does. In the case of asthma, less oxygen comes in, and then it goes where it should, which is in this case to the cells of the body and through the circulatory system. And in a healthy body, it simply follows that path with the normal amount of oxygen. That's 25 oxygen molecules per breath. I know that from the student-to-student discussion table that was at the bottom of the page. Next, if her body were functioning correctly, this is what would happen with starch and glucose. Again, you can solve this by looking at the simulation at the top and following a starch or glucose molecule. In this case, you'll watch starch go through the digestive system, break into glucose, and you'll watch glucose do one of 2 things. It will go through the circulatory system, and then it will either go into the cells of the body or go into the glucose storage. If you didn't know that already, use the simulation to take a look at it for yourself so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Once you've finished part 1 talking about the healthy body, we're ready to move on to a diagnosis. For each can below, we're going to say whether or not we think it's supported by evidence. We'll talk about a class at this point, and I'll get your feedback on it so you get an idea of what the other groups and pairs are working on. We'll start with just asthma, since that's the one I'm looking at before we move on to the others. So I'm going to say that it's not supported by the evidence, because when I looked at the student-to-student discussion information from Elisa, I saw that she had 25 molecules of oxygen per breath. Whereas in my evidence, which I found in lesson 2.4 by scrolling to the top, clicking on chapter 2 and going to lesson 4, I could see that people with asthma only take 12 oxygen molecules per breath, which means the evidence doesn't match and it isn't supported. So it's clear that it's not supported by this evidence. So now we have to explain our diagnosis. So let's use this sentence starter to do it, and I'll give a brief introduction before you write your own. My group believes, remember my group refers to the class, and we'll talk about this as a class before you begin writing it, that Elisa has or does not have blah. In this case, it's a condition of some sort. I think that she does or does not have the blank condition. Again, this condition is either anemia, diabetes, pancreas injury, or asthma, because. Then, explain how the molecules move through the body when someone has a condition you investigated, and compare that to Elisa's test result. So I'll say it this way. My group believes that Elisa has anemia, let's say, since a lot of you have agreed on anemia in previous times. I think that she does not have asthma, however, because. So in this case, I began by saying what I think she does have, which we'll get from talking about it as a group, and then I followed up with what she does not have, which I know because I did that in my student-to-student discussion and when I'm writing this argument now. So in the case of asthma, I would say I think she does not have the asthma condition, because she is getting more oxygen per breath than the average person with asthma would, period. Now, I did that in one quick sentence to show you how it should work, but you should have a little more data from your reading and from your modeling as well, so you should be able to do it in about 2 to 3 sentences. It shouldn't take you too long to write that part when you get there, though. The real meat of the part of this, the 15 minutes, comes in part 1, this part of part 2, and listening to the explanations from your classmates around the room. When you're done with this, you can click Hand In and get ready to move to the homework. We won't be doing this self-assessment homework because it's a very simple homework assignment that just asks you how you feel about the lesson. You shouldn't have to ask yourself how you feel, you can just check your grades to see for sure. So click Hand In when you're done, move on to the homework, and click the next video to find out how to do that.